Today we are experimenting with cooking ribs in the house. There are a lot of different ways that you can cook ribs versus smoking or baking or boiling. It really depends on the region where you're at and just your own personal taste. Today we are going to cook half of them in the oven and the other half we're going to sous vide, and then we're also going to finish them differently to see how they come out, and we'll compare and contrast when that's done. The first thing we're going to do is get our rub on our ribs. That's a personal favorite of mine. Not everyone likes to do a rub, it's not necessary, but I enjoy it. I think it has really good flavor to the ribs, so I'm going to show you how to do that. For our rub, we have brown sugar, we have salt, pepper, granulated garlic, chili powder, cumin, mustard powder, paprika, chili flakes, and my personal favorite, a little bit of coffee grounds. It has a little bit of roastness. So you're just going to get a nice mixing bowl and you just mix everything in there and give your ribs a good rub. I'm just mixing all of our ingredients into our rub. The amount of sugar that I used is going to combine with the moisture of the ribs and create a really nice glaze. You don't want to use all of the salt you have laying around, but you do want a good amount in there. Salt is going to pull out moisture and replace it with the salt itself, which is going to make your ribs way tastier. I use my hands. You don't have to. You can use a metal spoon. You can use a whisk. Just want to make sure everything is well incorporated. Here I am scoring the ribs. That creates a little bit more surface area for the rub to kind of get into the ribs. You just want to put a really nice even coat on all the ribs. Be very generous with the rub and just making sure they're like completely covered. Now that the ribs have our rub on them, we're going to wrap them up so they can sit for a couple hours. I'm going to let them sit, like I said, for about 4 to 5 hours. I'm going to go into a little more detail about the sous videing process. I have my cryovac bags. The point of doing this is we use a food saver and it takes all the oxygen out of the bag so nothing escapes. So you put them in a water bath that is controlled by a circulator so it maintains that heat. You want to make sure that the ribs are completely submerged in the water so that way you get proper cooking. I want to wrap it up just because your water will eventually evaporate and it kind of helps regulate the temperature better. You can also do this with a pot of water, Ziploc bags, and a thermometer. We're cooking our ribs at 167 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 hours. The other half of the ribs, like I said, are going to be baked. So we're transferring them to another sheet tray, and I am putting some aromatics, some mustard seeds, some cinnamon, bay leaf, some coriander, a little apple cider vinegar, some water, and some soy sauce. The point of doing this is to create steam that actually has flavor. If you just have water in there or don't put anything, you're not going to create any steam, and then you're using more dry heat to cook your ribs. You want to create the steam to have moisture. That's how your ribs get nice and tender. You want to put them on a rack so you get even heat going underneath them and over them. So you can see our brown sugar started glazing up there. Next we're just going to wrap them up in foil. You don't want to make them completely tight. You do want to let some of that steam out, but not much. Transfer them to the oven very carefully. And we're going to cook these bad boys for 4 hours at 250 degrees. What are we going to do with our remaining dry rub? We're going to turn it into barbecue sauce. Put it in a nice heavy bottom pot. Get the heat on it. Not super hot, but enough to start melting those sugars. You can add a little bit of moisture to kind of help it along. So now we got like a nice sugary paste there. The sugars are melting, all that good flavor. Everything that's going to be on the ribs is going into this sauce. We're going to add a little more water to it. We're going to add a little bit of tomato paste to it. Here I'm adding a little bit of molasses. Just a little more ketchup, get a little that sweet acidity. A little apple cider vinegar. A little soy sauce. It gives it a little saltiness, a little umami flavor. Then just a little bit of fish sauce, gives a little funk. And a little mustard for a little more acidity. I decided I wanted to strain this barbecue sauce because I did use coffee grounds in it. If you leave them in there, it'll be completely fine. They're going to be on the ribs anyways. But if you do want to use this for something else and you don't want coffee grounds necessarily in it, then you can strain them out and just have a really nice, smooth, silky barbecue sauce. So our ribs are done cooking from the oven. So we're pulling them out nice and carefully. See all that nice steam coming out of there? And it smells just like what we put our aromatics in. Our sous vide ribs are done as well, so we're going to get them out of the bag. And we're going to get ready to start finishing these so they're ready to eat. I'm going to slather these in barbecue sauce to finish them. And you can use any barbecue sauce. You don't have to make one yourself. Store-bought barbecue sauces are still really good. Our baked ribs are going to go back into the oven at 450 degrees, and our sous vide ribs we're going to put right onto the charcoal grill. We're going to add one more coat of barbecue sauce to these. When your ribs do come off, you want to let them sit for a couple minutes before you do cut into them so you don't lose any of that moisture. These are grilled sous vide ribs. In sous vide cooking, the moisture you have in the bag is pretty much all you get. Depending on the temperature and the cooking time though, they will come out very tender. It's just the process that we went with didn't result in extremely tender. They were still very tender ribs.
definitely pull off the bone. These are our baked ribs. These ribs came out a little more tender than our sous vide grilled ones just because of that added liquid we had in our pan to create moisture. Look at all that juice. And that's just a side-by-side comparison. Look the same, but taste very different. Our baked ribs were a little more tender, but our sous vide ribs had just a little bit more flavor packed in the meat because you couldn't let any moisture escape. So each have their own merits of cooking, but both produced extremely delicious, tender barbecue ribs.